welcome to our B&I Talks webinar. Today, we're talking about vision and mission for the new term. We had a new term just started last week, officially on Friday, right? So this is really the first week of the new term, and special guest, my podcast partner herself, the great Jenni Butz. How are you, Jenni?
I'm doing great. I love partnering with you because I can see you on this instead of on our podcast when I can only hear you.
That is true. So tell us about yourself and what you do, and give a plug for our fine podcast.
I'd be more than happy to give a shameless plug. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for the US for B&I. So my task is to help take the good news of what you're doing in your B&I chapters to the rest of the country so that you guys can all be sharing good tools and information with the communities where you live and work. So I am working with Steve on our podcast called Networking is No Joke, which is not a B&I podcast. It is a networking podcast. So we would love for you to share that with your non-B&I friends, because hopefully they'll get so much out of the strategies that we give about networking that they will want to come see it in action in your B&I chapter. So networkingisnojoke.com.
Thank you. And by the way, today's episode is one for everybody because we're talking about networking with different personality types. And I know you've got those in your chapter.
Yeah, for sure. And everybody, we assume, has a personality.
You would think. All right. So today we're talking about vision and mission. So let's start with the why. You know, I've been talking to, different chapters over the years. And the one thing that I noticed is some chapters get stuck. And it becomes part of the culture that, where they are right now is where they're going to be. And you can kind of predict 3 or 4 years from now, it's going to be the same. And if the culture is great, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But if it's not so great, then you feel kind of stuck. And I found this quote, which I really think sums that up, from Jan Van Zant, who says, if you don't have a vision, you're going to be stuck. And the only thing you know is what you've already seen. And I think that this is something that repeats over and over and over to the point where sometimes we lose members over it, good members that we don't want to lose. Yeah. So I think today is a good day to talk about how can we kind of break those cycles that we're in and really have a vision for something really great for not just your chapter, but for your business as well.
Yeah. And I think October is a perfect time to do that because you can still end this year in a significant way in your own business and in your chapter. But because so many things have changed, you're the same chapter, but now you have different people in different positions. It's a nice time to recalibrate and see what you can do to finish the year.
Agreed. All right. Ready for a poll? There are actually 2 polls. I'm very curious to see who's on today and where you stand in terms of your chapter. So let's start with, how many members are in your chapter?
Yeah, let's see. I'll be curious to see how many are over 55, because yeah. I am 55 years old, and I'm going to have to be 55 and over and check a new box on all kinds of surveys next year when I have my birthday.
Yeah, they're with you. All right. Everybody's in. That was quick answering. Thank you, everybody. Let's share the results. So we've got kind of a mixed bag here. We've got, we're all over the place. And congrats to those chapters that are over 45 members.
Yeah.
You must be doing something right. That's great. But my concern, Jenni, is always the 20 and below, because I feel like there's opportunity to turn this into something great. But sometimes not all the pieces are there.
Right. Yeah. I think categories are missing, personalities are missing, contact spheres are missing. Yeah. It's a good opportunity to look at some strategies to improve.
Mm-hmm. All right. So one more question. If I can find the poll. Oh, here it is.
There we go.
Nope, that's not the question.
The global convention has also been having some technology glitches.
There it goes. I found it. How much did your chapter report in for closed business in the past year? if you're not exactly sure, you should have a ballpark idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if the VP is giving a report,
Yeah.
You should know that.
And if you're not sure, you can just take a guess.
Take a guess. Take a guess. I think we would make about $10 million. $10 million.
There are a few chapters out there that are $10 million chapters.
I know.
I think
those
one
are good
of them
ones.
is in the Miami area. So we had someone from Miami, or maybe that's one of those chapters. If
Yeah.
that's you, put it in the chat.
Yeah. Wow, Scott, 72,000 per seat. That's your average, huh? That's impressive.
All right, here are the answers. So there we go. So the majority of our chapters are in the right around $1 million or so.
Uh-huh.
But we do have, I'm happy to see the 2 to 3 million and the 3 and 4 and up. That's fantastic. And we have two chapters that have done more than $5 million. If you know how much revenue your chapter did, put that in the chat, please.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that's what is going to draw people. I saw a question that popped up in the chat. I can't see all of them because they're going pretty fast, but somebody had said a question about how to attract people when they say they're too busy. And I think this is a great counterbalance to having not very much time on your calendar. How much money per hour do you want to pay yourself as an entrepreneur? And if you're in a place that's generating this kind of money, $4 or $5 million in the course of a year for a group of people, you may want to let go of something else on your calendar to be where these people are generating that kind of income.
Yeah. And I think, here's the thing that I know is that there's if you look at the chapters that are under 250K that are brand new chapters, as some people qualified, and that's fair. It's your first year, you're just figuring stuff out. Or if you're in the over 5 million, it's still the same people. It's just they're working together differently, and the vision is a little bit different for what they want. They're a little more connected. I'll tell you, I have been popping in and out of the convention that's going on right now, and I'm meeting some people in Asian countries, and man, they are serious about their networking.
Yeah.
And they have high expectations, and these are the chapters that have 100 people in them.
Yeah.
They open. And
they're coming to get business done. I think a lot of times, maybe it's a cultural thing in different countries in the world. As Americans, we want things to be fun. We also are trailblazers, and especially out here on the West Coast, we have a lot of people who, inherited that entrepreneurial trailblazer spirit from their ancestors who came out here on the horses and established things. But the people who are in a group where they're holding each other accountable and saying, we are here to do business, whatever the culture is, those seem to be the ones that grow and hit their goals.
One of the things I've said in the past is, I've been in a struggling chapter and I've been in a highly successful chapter, and they were both the same chapter. It was when I started in the chapter, it was not in good shape, and the people didn't care as much, and it was very social. And then one day we said, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we just follow the rules that Big Guy is laying out for us and see what happens, like a little experiment. And we did. And we went from a $300,000 chapter to a $4 million chapter. It took about close to 4 years to get to that point, but we got there and we stayed there. And that's the thing. That's where you want to kind of, latch onto that culture and keep it going. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah.
Jenny, talk about this.
I will talk about this. I have shown this in all of my visitor host trainings, and I think it's an impressive collection of statistics. When you double your chapter size, we talk about this with visitors. And I know, Sonia, you are putting some things in here. I can't wait for us to dig in a little bit, and we'll answer some of these questions about bringing in new members, because the best way you can increase revenue is to bring new people in. And you can see from this that when you double the chapter size, each member can potentially make 76% more revenue. That's each person when you've added people to your chapter as a whole. But look what happens underneath here to the chapter numbers together. You've got a 25 member chapter that if each of them is averaging 34,000 and thank you for closed business, that's an $850,000 chapter. And if you have nothing to compare it to and a visitor comes into your chapter and they might say, well, that's pretty impressive. 850,000, that's a big number. Unless, of course, it's a commercial real estate person, and that's not a very impressive number. But you can see the change is impressive, whatever the number goes from to. If you add 25 members to that, each person is making 76% more, but the chapter is making exponentially more, 3 times as much as a chapter. And those numbers and that kind of movement can be very impressive to your visitors.
And, a lot of this has to do with, it's kind of a numbers game. It's a quality numbers game, but at the same time, the opportunities to bring referrals to a group of 50 is so much easier than it is for a group of 25.
Right.
Just because, you're just going about your business and running into more opportunities to bring in referrals for your group, right? And that means you're going to receive more as well.
Right. More people, because if you think each person knows 100 to 150 people, that means by adding 25 people, you've added exponentially more potential contacts. And when those 25 people, now 50 people meet a new contact, they have the opportunity to introduce them to all the people in your chapter.
Yeah. And I think the way that we did it was, of course, doing the right things, which was, by the way, a lot of work because we were doing nothing right. But once we got the hang of it, it made sense, and it became easier to invite because we're inviting them to something that was orderly and was working properly, and something you were proud to invite someone to.
Right.
I've spoken to people who say, I'm hesitant to invite because I don't know if they're going to get referrals if I bring them in as a member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's hard about smaller chapters, but it's kind of like you need energy to exercise, but then exercising takes energy, and you're like, it's a little cycle. So you're small and you need people to come, but people won't come because you're small. So you have to have a different strategy. And I'm so glad that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about vision and mission defined. So for me, when I see vision, I think the future, right? It's what's going to happen if we do everything that we say we're going to do, right? Jenny, and what's your take on vision?
Very similar. We did, I don't know if you were part of this, Steve, or not, but several years ago, we were some directors on the BNI team were part of a 3-day visioning workshop. And part of what we talked about was, what does your organization, at the time I was supporting Western Washington, what does your organization look like 3 years from today? And it was very specific, going through metrics as well as kind of those ambiguous categories like culture. What do my members feel like 3 years from now? And we started this, it was a longer vision statement, pretty long. It's started with, it's December 21st in 2023, or whatever it was. And this is what my region looks like. So it's a real picture. It's a vision. You can see it. And it includes all the things you want to be at a point in the future. And then you go, oh yeah, then you know you've gotten there because you've fleshed it out and you've defined it, so you know you've arrived.
Yeah, there's something about talking about the future in the present tense that makes it feel like it's more attainable, right? Yeah. Here's where we're going to be, but we're going to talk about it right now because it's happening.
Yes, yes.
So as opposed to vision, mission is different. Mission, if vision is about the future, mission is about right now, right? Here's where we are, here's where we're starting, or here's, where we are at this point in the life of a business or your chapter. And what are the things that we need to do to get that vision achieved?
Yes. And I think the mission, saying these 2 words together is hard, like shoulder surgery. It's very difficult for me. But having a mission that doesn't change is the why. It's what fuels everything. So to me, a mission is probably going to include something about values, because my foundational principles that guide and inform everything I do in my life are not going to change from year to year to year. Our vision might change a little bit because we're going to get to that point, and we'll have to change the vision because we become something else then. But a mission is going to be like, we are guided by integrity, or we're guided by passion, or we do things with high levels of customer service. Those kinds of things are why we exist, and it's pulling us forward. I love that expression, as opposed to the vision that is going to be very specific, and we'll know when we've gotten there.
Right.
Hopefully you
Okay.
have these for your businesses as well as for your chapters.
Yeah, I think it's great to set that up, but also, if you have a business that's more than just you, it's great to have a meeting, like as you mentioned, like a vision meeting,
Mhm.
because I think if people know what they're working towards, they'll work harder at getting there faster.
Yeah, and there's ownership in it. So this process, if some of you have been on the leadership team in the last several years, depending on where you are in one of the core regions, if you are in one of those core regions, or if you're in a franchise region and your executive director has had you walk through a goal planning and a vision and mission process, either in September when you're doing your training or maybe at the first of the year, you can see that once you get a whole leadership team or a whole chapter involved in this process, everybody says, yes, I have buy-in, I'm invested in this, and I will commit and dedicate myself to doing what it takes to get us all over the finish line. That's far more effective than the president saying, all right, everybody, here's our vision. And then they go, okay.
Right, right. So I like these examples here for long-term vision. Valentine at 9. Where are they?
Charlotte.
Oh, that's Charlotte. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
HQ, baby. HQ.
That's right. Okay. And by the way, Sonia says the mission of her chapter right now is getting all members green in the power of one.
Okay. Yeah, that can pull you forward for sure. That's something to shoot for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll notice in these examples, I think we've got maybe 4 or 5 examples of vision and some examples of mission. We pulled these directly from BNI Connect. So if there's a follow-up activity or some follow-up communication that you want to have, we would love to help you find in BNI Connect. If you're a president, we would love to help you find where this is so that you can access it and keep it viewable for all of your members, because your vision and your mission are able to be seen by anybody in your chapter. And that's a great thing to come back to in your VP report to say, because our long-term vision is to be the #1 chapter in the state, we want to do A, B, and C. Or you as the president can say, we are trying to get to 45 members by October 5th of next year. And so this is our thing. And that inspires your members over and over again to stay in connection with your vision and your mission for the chapter.
Yeah, I like when the goals are specific, as these are, because saying that you want to be the coolest chapter, that should not be your goal. It's part of your culture to be cool, and that's great. But what are the results? What is the benefit to the members who are working in the chapter?
Yeah, and you can see from these examples of vision, there is not a template that BNI wants you to use or that you necessarily have to use. If you just did vision examples business and Googled that, you would find all kinds of things. Your chapter has to get buy-in for what works for your chapter. So you can see this chapter on the left, they are going to create money-making culture for all members of Moneymakers. I'm guessing Moneymakers is the chapter name.
Yeah.
So they have decided that this is just the way we like to write, Steve, short and punchy.
That's
it's
right.
Memorable. And whether you get caught on whether it's a vision or a mission and you have a different definition matters way less than the fact that your chapter agree on what you're doing and where you're going, and they understand it and can incorporate it into their weekly activities. So if you're the chapter on the left, then you could probably memorize that and say it every single meeting. If you're the chapter on the right, you're going to flesh this out, and that is the name of their chapter, BIZNEW. ORX. So this is what they use to inform everything that they're doing. And there's an explanation of it. Not as easy to memorize, but very clearly fleshes out where they want to be and who they want to be as a chapter.
I share their zeal for learning.
Agreed.
Okay.
And enthusiasm. That's how I sign my emails.
That is true. Okay, so Michelle says, our vision the last 2 years has been win big, welcoming intentional networkers, building income growth.
Love it.
That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Yes.
All right. So here are some mission statements now.
Right. And again, I pulled these from BNI Connect so you can see, given the definitions that we started with, a vision being a specific point in the future and where you want to be and what you want things to look like, and a mission being a driving force that won't change over time. Some of these are melding and some have swapped. It matters less that you follow the exact definition. What matters more is that you in your chapter all buy into where you're going and it means something, and you keep it top of mind in your meetings and in your communications. Otherwise, what's the point? So if we've got the Moneymakers chapter again, they're going to build and maintain relationships that will last well past their time at Moneymakers. That's a much bigger picture to say, even if we move away or I change my business, I'm still going to have an impact. That affects how I have a relationship with you today. If I know I'm going to keep that relationship, I'll often think I have to be nice to drivers, because what if they're going to the same meeting I'm going to, and I've just been terrible driver. Something. Oh, hi. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. Let's do business together. So how we treat each other now will be informed by how we want things to be in the future.
Right. One of the things that I love about these mission statements is some chapters are kind of either shrinking it down or just have a really short and punchy one. And they're starting off their meetings by saying, welcome everyone to our meeting. Yes. To say the Moneymakers or whichever chapter it is, and they say something like, we're flying to 40 and we're going to make $4 million or something like that, yes. Sort of alliteration or something like that. And repeating it every single yes. time at every meeting, first off, makes visitors say, hey, I want a piece of that action. Yeah. $4 million would be great. But also, it's in their heads and it becomes part of the culture to say, all right, we got to get to this number because we're talking about it every week.
Right. And yes, and it's inspiring, and you remember why you're doing what you're doing. I remember when a member left my chapter several years ago, we hated to lose him, but when he sent an email to several of us to let us know why he was leaving, he had a spreadsheet excerpt in the email that said, I took a survey of all of the places I'm networking and how much they cost and a return on the investment. And you can see that I'm getting more of a return on these other organizations. So it makes sense for me not to be in BNI anymore. And it was a blow, because I think sometimes we forget we are in this to make money. We, as employees of BNI, Steve and I, our goal is to increase your business. Your goal is also to increase your business. And as much as we love each other and BNI becomes like a family and we have those great relationships, they are started because we want to make money. And so when your mission and your vision have that in mind, you are going to capture the attention of the visitors who also want to be serious and they want to make money and they are going places in their business. And that will elevate the energy you have in your entire chapter. And that will translate into more energy for you as a business owner as well.
I was working with a new chapter out of state, and the person who launched it was in a chapter for a number of years, maybe 7 or 8 years. And she left because she said, this chapter is not moving fast enough. And so she started a new chapter, in the same city, and flourished right out of the gate because the mindset was different. And yes. I think that's a good part of this, is to say, can we get everybody on the same page here to say, let's make a lot of money this year? Yeah, how are we going to do that? Let's get to that point.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. One last round of mission statement, I believe.
Yes. Purposely connect with one another. I love that, because it's going back to some sort of a value, a foundational principle. And you saw in one of them from the last slide, we are going to help people. That includes a giver's gain value, assist members in their goals. This connects your BNI activity to your business activity, and you're going to be positive, supportive, and professional. These are really great phrases to express the values that drive your chapter.
Yeah, I like that line about purposefully connecting. Last week's webinar with Becky Isbell, we talked about one-to-ones, and the difference between someone saying, who's around for a one-to-one, as opposed to approaching somebody to say, let's create some business together and have a meeting about it.
Yes, huge different mindset. Good stuff.
All right, so what is your mission, either for your business or for your chapter? How will you write it out? Here's a good way of putting it together, right? You want something that's original, obviously. Sustainable, right? It's not something for the moment, right? And it must be connected with your chapter or your business. And Jenny, talk about the T-shirt test.
The T-shirt test is in theory, when you are coming up with your mission statement and you want it to be short and punchy, the T-shirt test is, will it fit on the back of a T-shirt? Because if it's a mission that won't change year over year over year, and we know we have BNI members who have been in their chapters 12, 15, 20 plus years. And in a chapter that hangs on to its culture and has really thought through this process of determining its mission, that mission will probably not change a whole lot. And even if you wear a very, very big T-shirt, you still need to have an economy of words so that you can remember it and everybody knows why you're there. Everybody remembers how it connects to their business. And so this T-shirt test is really just a reminder to be brief.
Right. You can't just shrink the font. You have to follow the rules. Like one quick sentence that just says all the right stuff.
9 point.
Sally says it becomes the chapter tagline. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, I love that.
All right. Now we're on to goals.
Yeah. So once we've got this big, and if you're new into your leadership team position, you have nothing but potential and power right now. It should be a great place. And if you're a member and you're not in a leadership position, you also can be that kind of deep state in your chapter that's creating the culture and supporting the leadership towards success. So regardless of where you are in your chapter, whether leadership or member and leading from the sidelines, role wise, the vision and the mission are going to inspire and motivate us to do the things that we need to do. However, if you say we have a 3-year vision and 3 years from now, this is what we look like, and that's all you talk about, and you don't break it down into something more tangible and more short-term, you won't have the opportunities to measure your success nor to celebrate your successes. And that's what we want you to be able to do. Every time, if you have ever been on a fitness kick or a weight loss program, or you're saving money for a house, if you say, I need to save $100,000 for this house, if you look at it, I've got to 20,000, I've got to 23,000, I've got to 25,000, and you're measuring. And when we get to 50,000, we're opening a bottle of champagne, or I've lost 25 pounds. So I'm going to celebrate and, watch this movie I've been wanting to watch. I was going to say drink champagne, but you're probably not going to do something with so many calories. But anyway, we have to have something measurable and something worth celebrating. And so that's when we get down into the little bit more granular level of goals. That's how we get to success. Because if we don't, this is where we're going to end up. And if you got into a van and somebody say, hey, we're going on a road trip. Great. Where are we going? They said, I don't know. Let's just drive. It's very difficult to know when you get there. It's very difficult to know if you're halfway there. I had a hip replacement when I was 29. Long story why, but I did. And I remember when my husband and I were newly married, and he loves to walk. He could walk miles and miles. And we would start our walks and he would say, you have to let me know when you're halfway, because then we'll have to turn around. And because I couldn't walk very far. And the same thing is true for your goals and your vision and your mission. How will you know if you're halfway if you're not measuring those things along the way? It feels nebulous, and those people who like to have a little structure are going to feel lost in your chapter.
I love it when I see a vice president's report that really digs into where we are right now in the course of the year, what goals we set, how far we are. Are we ahead of ourselves? Are we behind? And if we're behind, what can we do to still hit that goal? I don't want to hear people saying, well, we overshot, so we're going to knock off, 300,000 from our goal. No, figure out a way to get there.
Right, exactly. So, but in order to set these goals, you have to start with, next slide. You have to tell us what you want, what you really, really want.
There you go.
Because your goals, I know, yeah, I keep clicking that animated. Because you have to connect with both your chapter life and your business life. Oh, it keeps going. Are you doing that?
I'm doing that.
Because if your business is not connected to what you're doing in BNI, you will often feel like you're taking time away from your business to do your BNI things, when in fact, they should dovetail and complement each other perfectly. So if you're spending 10 hours a week marketing your business to get in front of the right people. B&I is part of that 10 hours. So you're not taking time away, but you have to know where you're going. You have to know what you want, what you really want. And the chapter collectively can determine that. And that's how you roll out the goals that you have for the year. Now you're going to
one last one.
One last shimmy.
All right. So how do we get there? Whoops.
Well, whoops. Chapters that are setting goals on a regular basis. And this is setting them maybe at the beginning of the term or at the beginning of the calendar year, and revisiting them maybe every quarter or every 6 months. The ones who are going through this process and regularly staying on top of them, they are characterized by having about 40 members. They average 5 referrals per member per month. So these are green, green, green on every metric that we measure. And they're doing about $3 million in closed business per year. Now that's an average. Now, is it correlative or is it cause and effect? I'm going to go with probably, I would put money on the latter. It's not a coincidence that the chapters who are setting goals, measuring them, celebrating them, and then setting more goals are the ones that are successful and growing, the most lucrative chapters. Let's be that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So where do we start? I feel like I'm hijacking this webinar, Steve. So you just...
Well, you're the special guest, so you're doing it correctly. My job is to present you as the presenter.
Thank you.
I'll chime in.
So just like in your GPS, when you want to go somewhere and you put in a destination for the address, your GPS can't start taking you to your destination until it determines where you are. So we hear a lot of chapters. I know, Steve, you have had these conversations. I have, a lot of our director colleagues have heard this, where a chapter will say, well, we're just going to go for everybody green in the power of one, or we're going to go for, our chapter is going to make $4 million this year. And you think, okay, well, where are you now? And is that feasible to do in the amount of time that you've set? I remember sitting with a friend while she was at a doctor's appointment. I was flipping through the magazines and somebody was asking Heidi Klum, supermodel, all these questions about beauty and fitness. And they said, how did you get to be so trim and fit after you had X number of babies? I think she had 3 kids or something. And I loved her answer. She said, you have to be realistic. What did you look like before you got pregnant? None of us looks like her, right? We can't all look like a supermodel. So your chapter can't go from a $250,000 chapter to a $5 million chapter in a short amount of time. You could do it in a longer amount of time, in a realistic amount of time, but you have to look at where you are so your goals are realistic and you don't get discouraged because you never meet them. That's not the kind of goal that you want to set. So you'll look at things like your chapter traffic lights report. And if you are in a leadership team position and you're not familiar with how this happens, your chapter success coach or your support director will be able to help you figure out what they mean, where you've been. You can look at a history of them and where you can set realistic goals. The same is true for your PALMS report. If you look in, looking at your attendance, your referrals given, your referrals received, did you have any substitutes? How many visitors? CEUs, all of these things are the metrics that we use in B&I because it's what the most successful members do over and over again. So if you're going to a gym and you see somebody who's super cut and really fit and great muscles, and you say, what do I need to do to look like that? And that person says, well, I don't eat ice cream. I run 5 miles every day. I do these different things. You would be an idiot not to do the things he's doing. That's what these metrics are. They're the things that successful members are doing. The power of one is you doing those things individually, and then you contribute to the chapter traffic lights, and those overlap a lot in their metrics. So this is a really good place to start.
Yeah, and I think this is something you can do for your own business. When was the last time you looked at your business plan? Do you need to update your products and services on your website? What are the things? Do you need to hire somebody or bring in a virtual assistant to help you out as your business expands? All of those things are important to look at to make sure that everything is moving forward, and everything that you're doing for your business is moving it in the right direction, rather than just saying, well, I've got enough, business coming in to, keep the lights on and go out for dinner once a week. So and so you tend to level off sometimes.
Right.
But I think there always needs to be some sort of drive, a hunger to make the business better for you
Right.
to expand it out. And that's going to reflect itself in your chapter as well.
For sure. And I think to that end, Steve, if you are content with the revenue that your business has, but you don't want it to just stagnate, because we know economies change, there's attrition and all those kinds of things. You might look at other things like, I want to increase my professional development. I'm going to take more classes or listen to more podcasts. The equivalent for your chapter might be, we're making really good money and we have a good number of people and we like the rhythm and the cadence of our chapter, but all of us could learn more and be better professionals. So let's help each other learn more to earn more. So that's how you set your goals.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that I see sometimes is people try to, change a couple of things, and that's okay. You don't want to totally transform your chapter overnight. Pick one or two things, but I think the one or two things that you have to choose shouldn't be things like, if you're meeting in person, we're spending too much time or not enough time on open networking or something like that. It should be something that is the biggest priority in the chapter first, right? So if you're not doing enough referral business, then you need to step up the education and maybe the one-to-ones to create something like that. If you're not bringing in enough visitors, then there needs to be a focus on that. Do something that is kind of fun, like a B&I game, or something that's going to get people to want to invite. Gamifying is always a good thing to do for chapters that need to make a change. So it shouldn't feel like drudgery. It should feel like this is fun and we're growing and making money.
Yes. And if your chapter doesn't know where to begin, and maybe you're coming into a leadership position, I know I did this when I was president. I've talked to lots of people who do it. This is the year. This is my year. We're going to do all these things. And yes, do that. And if you don't know where to begin, always begin with attendance. That should be the first goal. And there's a place in BNI Connect where it goes through all the metrics of the traffic lights. Attendance should always be the one, because if you don't show up, you can't do anything else. So start with attendance. Show up for our meetings. Log in on time. Don't be in your car when you're on a Zoom call. If you're in person, be early. Stay to the very end. That is the first priority. Then go through the rest of the metrics with things that individuals can control. I can control how many CEUs I get, because I will go on to BNI University or I will listen to the podcast. I can control those things. So you start with the things that empower your individual members to contribute more significantly to the group as a whole. And I was just looking at one of the, thinking of one of those vision and mission statements that one of the chapters had said, we're going to take over Michigan. And I love the energy behind that. And I would love to see that kind of a high level thing when you're talking about where am I going? And that's what this picture is supposed to represent. Now take that high level idea and motivator and put some goals underneath it to say, what does it look like to take over Michigan? How do we get to this? Define the metrics and then say at the end of the first month, we'll do this. At the end of the second month, we'll do this. And you will see that the visitors will start to happen more organically, because as you get excited about your chapter and you make more money, you will want people to be there and say, I have someplace you need to be if you want to grow your business. It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to invite when you've got that momentum going on in your chapter, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I was going to make a point earlier about contact spheres. Start where, just look at who's in your group right now and say, is this contact sphere working? Is it full, or is it missing people who are going to make us money? I don't want you to grow for the sake of growth. That doesn't work, because people don't hang around for that if they're just going to check it out. But if you say, hey, there's a place for you in this group where you're going to make some money, then that's going to work. So, create based on what the makeup is for your group right now, as opposed to figuring out, well, these are the top professions, we have to have them in. That may not work for you. Do what works for you. Every chapter is a little bit different.
Yeah, because if my perfect referral partner isn't in this chapter and I'm doing business with someone in another chapter, because we do give business to each other, I'm far less tied to the chapter I'm in, because I want to follow the money trail. I want to be where the money is being generated. Those referrals are coming.
Right. And so I hope that you'll all try this, put maybe at your next chapter success meeting, put it out there. Hey, this is my idea for the mission. Maybe someone can tweak it or make it better or figure it out, but make that part of your meeting and talk about that, announce it at the beginning of the meeting, what you're going to do so that your visitors say, hey, that sounds great. I want to be part of this.
Very intentional. And also, your regional team would be thrilled. I know it doesn't matter if you're in a core region or a franchise region. I know the heart of teams that want to help support chapters. They would be thrilled if you said, hey, could you help us and come into one of our meetings and take us through this process to really go through goals and a vision and a mission. They would love it. You could take a whole meeting, you could take a chunk of a meeting, have an extra meeting, but this process should not be rushed, because it is so foundational to where you want to take the life of your chapter. And if you're helping support one another's businesses, you want to make sure you have some flesh and muscles on the skeleton of where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been a mixed metaphor. Whatever.
I get it. Well, it's kind of a callback to what you're talking about earlier. So everyone, thank you for being on today. There's Jenni's contact info if you'd like to get in touch. So is mine. If anyone has a great idea for a webinar, please send me an email. If you'd like to present, we can talk about that as well. And finally, check us out at networkingisnojoke.com. We'd love to have you on there. Jenni, any final words?
I was just scrolling through the chat. I think we'll have to go back and look at this later. I love all of the contributions that you guys are making. And I would just say again, if you're in a leadership position or not in a leadership position, you can help drive this in your chapter and it will be a game changer for your business. So I hope that you all take advantage.